What's happening, Luke?
What is cooking, my man?
Gosh, just another day. Busy day. Now we're getting into the holidays. It's cooking with you.
Same here. I was, just thinking that, just scheduling out the next couple weeks and looking through that. So,
So I was looking at my. Hold on, let me do Chat GPT. So today, as you know, I've been on this rucking challenge. What I've come to discover is that nobody knows what rucking is. Like people who follow me and they see me in person and I'm talking about rucking and they're like, what is that?
yeah.
And I'm like, and there's a lesson to be learned here because I get on meetings and people start using a lot of different acronyms and I'm not following. There's some underlying information that you need to provide.
Right.
So my challenge that I gave myself, it was, let me see, how many days, I'm going to ask ChatGPT, how many days has it been since July 11th, 2024 to today? And it has, so from July 11th, it's been 127 days. So it's been 127 days since I've been waking up and going off and making sure. Well, actually, it started out that my whole thing started out with I wanted to close my rings, my exercise rings. You know what that is because you have an iPhone. If you're not on an iPhone, you I don't know. Do they know what I'm talking about? Maybe. Do they have rings?
I'm sure they're probably familiar. I don't personally use it, but I know what you mean. I've never actually opened that part of my phone, so.
Really?
Yeah.
It just doesn't pop up?
I think I disabled it like a long time ago.
Oh, okay. So anyways, there's 3 rings. It tracks how many calories you burn, active calories you burn. So mine's at 600 a day. So you're moving around and you're going to burn 600 calories. It has a standing goal. Mine's 12 out of the 24 hours in the day. And standing means that you're actually upright, not just standing because I stand behind a desk all the time. And I've often wondered why it doesn't count. It means that you're up and moving. You're moving around while you're standing. And then it talks about, what am I missing here? So I did the calories. I did the
Steps?
Standing. No, the steps is separate. That's not part of the rings.
Okay.
So the 600 calories, and let me just open up my stand. Oh,
600
exercise.
calories is just moving around, just daily.
Yeah, that's just for the
activity.
day. That's okay. Just for the day. So I have, so the move calories are 600. Exercise, so you're actually going out and you're doing a workout. I do 45 minutes, and the standing is 12 out of the 24 hours. So my goal was when I started this is that I was going to close every ring. In addition to that, I needed to get 10,000 steps.
Okay.
So what I discovered is that wasn't good enough. I discovered that given the job that I'm in and the job that you're in, we're behind a camera a lot. We're behind a computer a lot. And I think a lot of people are like that. And to get 10,000 steps in the day just off your normal walking doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So I had to start waking up early. Didn't want to do it later in the afternoon because that's when my kids are back from school. So the only time I could do is wake up. So I started, as you know, I start waking up.
Yeah.
I think I started waking up at 4:50. I'm now down to 4:20, and I get up and I'm out the door and I go and work out for an hour. And my workout at the bare minimum is walking. At the bare minimum. Like my commitment to myself is I wake up early and I get out the door in 10 minutes. And in the worst case scenario is walking for going on just a casual walk, a Sunday stroll, if you will.
Right.
But then I kind of grew up from that into, I'm like, well, if I'm going to walk, I need to do a brisk walk. So that's level 2. It's like, now I want to go for a walk that's fast. But then I'm like, well, I can do better than that. And I start rucking. Well, rucking is a brisk walk with weight on your back. And so I have 30 pounds. I started at like 20 and now I'm up to 30. And then I'm like, well, that's not good enough. Now I've got to do an interval run. And so now I keep track of my heart rate on my watch, and I want to stay in zone 2 or 3. So what I'll do is I'll start with a 30-pound pack, and I'll warm up, because as we get older, you have to take time to warm up because your knees aren't what they used to be. And then what I do is I just run, walk, keeping my heart rate in zone 2 or 3. Now I do zone 2 and 3 is just because that's like a fat burning zone. So I bring that up is because, number one, I'm now on day 127. My goal was to do 100 days, and why stop there?
Right.
But number two is a lot of things are going on right now. I just got back from a real estate office yesterday. They had their business planning event yesterday, and I went there to speak. And so a lot of people are talking about goals. A lot of people are talking about planning. And one thing that I've noticed when I'm up, now I didn't get on the road today until I walked out the door and I was working, I think it was 4:50. Mm-hmm. I'd like to get out between 4:30, 4:45, so I was a little bit late. But here's what I can tell you. There's not a soul around. Not a soul. My neighborhood has 5,500 condos and properties in it. And, it's a nice neighborhood. It's people do well in this neighborhood. I didn't see a person. And I typically don't see anyone until about 5:30.
Right.
And I started thinking about, and I call these my rucking thoughts. Kind of a play off of a derogatory word, but instead because it's almost a form of meditation. But as I'm walking, and it's still fresh on my mind about the business planning and such, here's what I've concluded, is that everybody wants a lot of things. There was no planning to it. Planning means if you identify something and now you're going to figure out a way to do it. That's what I define planning. If you have a goal, now we have to break it down into the daily activities. That's planning. Right. This was identifying where your situation is at and what you want in life and what you want to do this next year. It was like it wasn't planning. It was, I don't know, dreaming, identifying what you want, not how you're going to get it, but just to what you want. But then I started thinking about it, and I'm looking around, and there's no one out there but me. And it's typically like that, even with cars. I walk down Irvine Boulevard, and you don't even see a whole lot of traffic. It's not until I come back, until it's like, I get back around that 6 a.m., 5:50, 5:45, 6 a.m. is when I'm done. I have a 1 hour block. What I do in that 1 hour, I can control 1 hour. It's the intensity that I do in that hour is how I change my workouts.
Right.
But I'm like, everybody wants these things, and they're talking about a lot of things. People want to do this, that, and the other. But then what I realize is that a lot of people aren't willing to pay the price.
Right.
There's that saying that the early bird gets the worm. And look, I'm not saying that everybody needs to wake up early. Some people can stay up late, but there's a lot of things that you can do from an efficiency standpoint that people aren't really willing to commit to. And if you're not willing to commit to it, what's the point in actually even identifying what it is that you want? Because you're not going to get it. All you're going to do is just set yourself up for failure. So that was my whole thing I wanted to talk to you about today, was just more along the lines of, people setting goals, what the commitments are, why people don't achieve them. You're a unique individual that I've gotten to know over the years, because you are the one person that to me epitomizes the entrepreneur. I've shared on our sessions about your investments in Redbox when that was big. You've ran a telephone, a call room. You've done a variety of different things, and you tend to move where the market takes you. And you're really good at just getting things done. So I want to hear, my whole goal to talking to you today, as we've talked about having subjects, is why do you think that most people don't get what they want.
I appreciate your your breakdown of what you're doing and like your goals and stuff. I think that in and of itself is like a perfect example of like being willing to do what other people aren't to get what you want. It's like we all want, most people have this like list of things that they're desire for, or like a picture of how they want things to be. But then when it gets down to actually waking up at 4 a.m. to, hit your goals, well, when the rubber meets the road, like people might be motivated to do it for a little bit of time, but that consistency is hard over an extended period of time. And that delayed gratification of being able to continue to do that day in, day out, even if you're not seeing the progress, is not easy for a lot of folks. So, I mean, for me, like that delayed gratification component of it, like being able to be at peace with yourself, and not seeing the results that you're hoping for, a lot of times, it's funny when you were talking about, your progression of what you've been doing over time to like continue to challenge yourself. Like, okay, now I'm doing intervals and 30 pounds. I'm like, man, we're going to check back in on at this rate. You're going to be doing an ultra Ironman marathon.
No, I'm not going that route
in a year. So I like, I don't know, man. I think kind of bouncing around a little bit on some of the ideas, but I'm curious on like digging in more on like some of the fitness stuff and what you're doing on that, like those benchmarks, those KPIs, like calories. I think these are all kind of like interesting threads to continue to pull, which are like the building blocks of hitting goals in the future, right? So it's like you have like a fitness goal, like, okay, we're chunking down to things that you can actually manage and can control. And that in and of itself is like, because we can't control the market, we can't control, the outside world, but what can we control? Like, it's a perfect example of what you hit on there. It's like I can control my standing time, or my my steps, my 10, the intensity of which I use my hour. If I'm not hitting the goals or meeting the benchmarks that I'm wanting to achieve, well, okay, now I need to adjust what I'm doing within that time frame of what can I control and how do I control that. So I think that's just an awesome example of the framework to kind of work through getting and achieving your goals.
For me, as I look back on this, it was I turned 50 in February, and in July I wasn't happy with where my physical fitness was. You know my background. I was a competitive martial artist, taught martial arts. I'm a Marine, and so my knees were hurting, my hips were hurting, and my suits were fitting tight, and so it was really just a defining moment where I just had to have a conversation with myself. And the one thing that I knew I could control was just walking. You hear about these people talking about 10,000 steps. And so my journey started off with just my whole commitment was just, I still have, like you, we still have young kids, and I tend to want to be an active father. So my whole thing with that is that I just needed to make sure that I got back down to a functional fitness level. Part of that was losing weight, but I also wanted to make sure that if some sort of emergency happened, that my body was capable of doing things, because, right then my knees would crack going up the stairs. If I couldn't run very much. I was a shadow of what I was back in the day. And actually, I think I'm actually more physically fit now than what I was. I'm not as, I don't have as much muscle mass as I had back then, but that's on purpose. Someone was asking me the other day about, because I do calisthenics in addition to that. And they said, well, why don't you just lift weights? You know, do you want to size up? I said, I only want to get as big as my body will naturally get with the amount of protein that I'm eating now. Right. I said, you look at people who have this large, massive, what we would call a masculine feel, they have got to eat just to maintain that. They've got to eat a lot of protein. They got to eat a lot of food just to maintain that. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be a slave. I want to eat when I'm hungry. So... So I said, as you know, wherever I get with that, I'm fine. But everything did evolve. The time thing. Yeah. I have 1 hour in the morning. Sometimes I get 1 hour and 15 minutes. You'll love this. I took a wrong turn. I went right into, when I say that in the morning it's like meditative, I took a wrong turn, and I ended up on the wrong path. And I pause. I'm like. Because I have this map, I have this little group that I'm in with Jim Edwards. He created this group. It's a rucking group, and we post all of our maps each day. And I want a loop. I want a perfect loop. I don't want it to go this, that, and this other way. So it's just, you know, it's so I get to it, and I'm like, where am I gonna go? Like I ended up walking. I didn't realize I was walking the wrong direction until I hit my midwit where I should be towards the end of my walk. I took a shortcut. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to hang a right, and I'm just going to walk the perimeter of Great Park, the actual park. Yeah. That was a mistake because it's much larger than it's massive. So. I take off because my whole so the reason I share that is because I did an hour and like 15 today, but I had to double time it throughout. I had to turn it, and I wasn't planning on doing an interval run, but I had to do the interval run because of the amount of time constriction. So for me, I have this time that's carved out, a minimum hour, maybe an hour, 15, 20 minutes. It really kind of depends on how fast I'm out the door. And that's it. Because if I gauge the distance by steps, or if I gauge the distance or my workout by miles or anything like that, I'm not in control of that. If I can just say, look, everything that I'm doing is within this hour confine of this hour, I can schedule accordingly to that. So that's how that evolved into that. As far as eating, I really... The nutritionist that I talked to and all the stuff, the research I said that I need like 2,300 calories a day. And I started doing that. I'm like, I was eating when I wasn't hungry. And I was eating in the morning. And then I read this article on intermittent fasting. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to stop eating after 7. I'm not going to eat till 11. And I'm going to take my calories down to a minute, up to like 1,500. And so I did that, and I just adding that into the steps. I just started melting.
Where are you at weight wise now?
Like 160.
160. Okay. I was gonna say, if I'm like cutting, I'm usually close to like, or like dropping, I'm doing like 2,000.
Really?
But I'm like, I'm right around 200 right now.
Yeah. So for me, what time is it? It's almost 9:00. So I'm not going to eat until 11. And the only thing I'm going to eat is 2 hard-boiled eggs, maybe some hummus. And that'll take away the hunger pains. I'm only eating like twice a day. Now, here's the thing. I want people to know I'm not hungry. I'm not starving myself. Right. Like I went out with my real estate buddies that I have here. We go to pizza like every month, and I went and had quite a bit of amount of unhealthy pizza and beer. But it's doing, what is it?
The refeed.
Yeah. I fell off the wagon. This last, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks has been challenging, and I've been off my diet. I hurt my back. I strained my back, so I didn't have the ruck on. I just went back to rucking like yesterday, and now my back's okay and such. And I just started my interval runs again today. But it was a challenge this last 2 or 3 weeks, just because it was hard waking up in the morning. It was hard staying on the diet. Halloween didn't help because my kids have these 2 big bags of candy that I'm still gorging on. But one of the things I did, and this kind of goes back into goal planning or to being committed, is that my commitment to myself, my deal with myself, is I wake up early and I at least go for a walk for an hour. What I do during the hour is the change, but my minimum commitment to myself is I'm waking up early and I'm getting out the door. And if all it is just a Sunday stroll for an hour, then it's a Sunday stroll for an hour.
I love that, man. It's such a good way, like you were saying, like your rucking thoughts. Like, it's such a good opportunity to just work through everything that's like kind of floating around in your head. And like, I mean, for me, I walk a decent amount too, and it's just a really good opportunity. I mean, inspiration, like it's like an extended shower thoughts kind of place where they have that creativity, sorting through certain things. Have you and I know it's totally different, but have you looked into doing one of the treadmill things under the desk?
I haven't looked into that. I actually don't have enough room in this spare room of mine. When I was, so I'm going out walking, and Dana, my wife, Dana, she, if it's windy outside or if it's raining, she's like, yeah, if you're at a hotel, you can, because I'm going to Durango, Colorado, I think it's in Vail, like the week after Thanksgiving. And it's going to be cold. I'm looking at it. It's going to be cold. And she's like, well, you're just going to have to use a treadmill. I'm like, I'm not going to use a treadmill. And she goes, why? There was a year in the Marine Corps, you have to do your physical fitness test once a year. And this was early on when I was training for it. And I only trained because I was in Utah. I was training over the winter because it's a 3-mile run. And I wanted to get my run time down. I only trained on the treadmill, even though it was cold outside. Here's what happened. Cardiovascular, I was fine. My legs and my hips and my glutes and everything wasn't. There is something to be said about gravity and the pushing and the stomping of how it works your legs.
Right.
So, I think for getting the steps, I would be okay with that. But part of me doing the steps has to do with the pushing and the stepping that you don't get from the treadmill. Yeah. And I'm doing my average steps per day with what I've already hit my 10,000 steps today. So I did that at an hour ago. I know. It's 8 o'clock in the morning my time, and I've already hit 10,000.
Good for you. One wrong turn, and you're at 10K.
But here's the thing.
When I thought about this, when I thought about the treadmill stuff, it's to me it would be more of like in addition to, rather than
an add-on.
Substitute for. It would be like, hey,
how much are those?
You can get them super cheap, a couple $100 maybe.
Really?
Amazon, and they do not take up much real estate. They're probably.
Do you have one?
I don't. Not anymore. But they are. But I used to have one because my new spot doesn't have. I'm still waiting to get a new stand-up desk. But the one that I had before, it was. They're probably more than like 36 inches long. Like, it was very, very manageable.
Yeah, $120, $150, $180, $85. Luke, you might have just caused me to do something. I got to get through the holidays. I got my dad coming. I got my sister-in-law coming. I got my mother-in-law coming. I'm going to have, starting Thanksgiving, I'm going to have guests through the end of the year. And So I got to take down my system and just do my remote stuff because, like most people, I have my at-home office in my spare room.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'll do that. You ought to consider doing the rings, man. I like the rings. It gives you a visual.
Yeah.
It gives you a visual thing. Now here's the other thing. Is one of the motivating factors is I committed to 100 days and I've gone further than that. Yep. One of the reasons why, I'm late. I got to go. I'm late for a meeting.
Rock and roll, man.
Talk to you later, guys. Bye.
Get it.